Hello and welcome to our special broadcast of Operation Sindhu. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Here are the headlines we are tracking this hour. Top Indian government sources warn Pakistan that any future act of terror will be considered as an act of war against India and will be responded accordingly. Defence forces inflict extensive damage on Pakistani forces after they used long-range missiles, drones, fighter jets and heavy-caliber weapons to target 26 civilians and military locations last night. India strikes crucial military sites in Pakistan with precision weapons. The sites, most of which are located in Pakistan's Punjab province, housed technical infrastructure, command and control centers. The government says India ensured minimum collateral damage while carrying out the attacks. The Indian government busts Pakistan's claim of damaging key air bases in India, says all air bases are safe, shows time-stamped images of undamaged air bases. The government says claims of an S-400 system being destroyed are also fake, calls Pakistan's claims of Indian missiles hitting Afghanistan ludicrous. At least 5 prominent terrorists were killed in the Indian strikes in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir on May 7. These include senior commanders of the Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed. 32 airports across the northern and western India shut till May 15th due to increased military action on the Indo-Pak border. Passengers across other Indian airports asked to arrive at least 3 hours in advance due to heightened security. A bureaucrat and 3 others were killed in heavy shelling by Pakistan in Jammu and Kashmir overnight. Debris of drones and missiles found in towns bordering the line of control. Multiple explosions were heard over Srinagar this morning. The International Monetary Fund approves a $2.4 billion support package for Pakistan under 2 programs. India abstains from voting, raises concerns over the possible misuse of these funds for state-sponsored cross-border terror. Our top story this hour. Top government sources have warned Pakistan that any future act of terror against it will be considered as an act of war against India and will be responded accordingly. The latest missive comes from India as tensions at the border flare up. The Indian government said that defence forces inflicted extensive damage on Pakistani forces after they used long-range missiles, drones, fighter jets and heavy-caliber weapons to target 26 civilians and military locations overnight. India has also struck crucial military sites in Pakistan with precision weapons. The sites, most of which are located in Pakistan's Punjab province, housed technical infrastructure, command and control centers. The government said that India ensured minimum collateral damage while carrying out the attacks. The Indian government also busting Pakistan's claim of damaging key air bases in India. It said that all air bases are safe and showed time-stamped images of undamaged air bases. A bureaucrat and 3 others were killed in heavy shelling by Pakistan in Jammu and Kashmir overnight. Debris of drones and missiles found in towns bordering the line of control. Multiple explosions were heard over Srinagar this morning. We're now joined by General VP Malik, former Chief of the Army Staff, Indian Army. General Malik, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. First of all, let me get your reaction. You're someone who led the country during the Kargil War. Today, top government sources have said that any future act of terrorism from Pakistan against India will be treated as an act of war and India will respond accordingly. What's the significance and signal from this statement?
Good evening, Parikshit. I think it's an extremely important grand strategic, military strategic, and a message for military doctrines also. Now, grand strategy is political strategy. I'm referring to that. What we have clearly said that any act of terror on our side of the border will be an act of war, and we do not differentiate between the terrorists coming from the other side and their military. And therefore, our military strategy will be based on this mandate hereafter, which means that we can utilize whole of the nation strategy, our armed forces, all 3 of them, and even some more if required, they will be free to act as if we are in a state of war. And accordingly, our military doctrine, which has been quite soft while dealing with the terrorist cross-border terrorism, I think now it will have to be changed because of this mandate which has now come from our political leadership. So it's a very important message for our armed forces. It is an important message for the whole nation, in fact. And I hope this message sinks in the Pakistan army and its leadership.
Could you give us a sense, is this also an indication, as you said, this is grand strategy, telling Pakistan, stop now before things get worse?
Yeah, that's right. And it is also indicative of absolute zero tolerance as far as cross-border terrorism is concerned. And people have to realize now on the other side that they cannot keep denying any acts of the terrorists which they have been breeding for such a long time. We've seen so many incidents in the past, and we have changed our strategy slightly when we went on the other side of line of control for strategic cross-border act that we did. And also we went to Balakot, but they were not sufficient. This time we have now changed our political mandate, as well as our strategy. And that is why you see all the actions that have taken place, inclusive of the Indus Water Treaty held in abeyance, and many other types of action that we have taken diplomatically, economically, and Operation Sindhu. Operation Sindhu is just part of that strategy, the grand strategy that we are following. But hereafter, if we had not made it clear, I think in very simple words, it has been made clear to Pakistan that we shall not accept any cross-border terrorism. And if they indulge in that, we will position ourselves as if we are fighting a war.
Right. When was the last time, General Malik, that India actually declared an act of war? Currently also, when we are almost in a warlike situation, or we are practically in a warlike situation, the government has not called it so. In our history, in our military history, was there an occasion when India said we are at war? And what is the procedure for declaring war?
Parikshit, last time when we declared a war, I'm using the word declared a war, that was in 1971. After that, the next war that we fought against them was in Kargil. We did not declare a war. And what I also want to tell you is that the definition of war is quite ambiguous. As far as we are concerned, we have been fighting this proxy war now for decades. And then there is a question of limited war. We fought in Kargil, we fought a limited war, limited to a frontage of about 160 kilometers. And again, there also, we imposed a restriction on ourselves that we shall not cross the border and we shall not cross the international boundary also. So what we have, today's terminology is a gray war scene. What we are now fighting is a gray war, which is below the full-scale conventional war. And under these circumstances, nobody talks of declaring a war. We just react or we act as we see the kind of a combat situation that arises for us.
Right. Could you elaborate on that, sir? You're saying today we are fighting a grey war, which is below a full-scale war. How has the warlike scenario actually changed? Even right now, we're not looking at ground combat or ground incursions, at least for now. It is being fought in the air through drones. It is being fought in the cyberspace. Yes, Pakistani fighter jets have also intruded into our airspace, but we're not looking at ground-to-ground combat. So when you say that today we are fighting a grey war, not a conventional war, how have things changed?
Yeah, you know, this grey war that I have said, it could also be called a limited war. Because don't forget, at the moment we have not used our navy and we have not tried to cross the border anywhere. So it is still limited war. We still have the capability to do much more, but we are not wanting to escalate it beyond this level. And right from the beginning, we have been declaring that our response has been very measured, very responsible, and non-escalatory. So when you are doing this kind of fighting, then it comes under the, I would say, the definition of either a limited war or a grey war. And today we are not utilizing our full resources, our capabilities. As I told you, Navy is still not really got involved in the war, and nor we have taken any action to cross the border if we need to. We have those capabilities, but we have declared ourselves that we are not interested in doing that unless we are forced to escalate from their side. At the moment, as we see it, that all the actions, right from the beginning, the actions starting from in Pahalgam massacre, now all that has been very, very provocative and escalatory. But as far as we are concerned, we just want to respond to that. We do not want to escalate it further. That is where I'm counting it, that it is below the conventional war.
Right. But I would like to also speak to you about the briefing that was addressed to by the Army and the External Affairs Ministry earlier today. They said that Pakistan is moving troops to the border, which is a concerning sign of escalation. At the same time, Pakistani fighter jets, they have entered our airspace. There were dogfights. They were engaged by our forces successfully. When you do things of this kind and also fire high-speed missiles, does this in any way indicate that Pakistan is backing down, or do you feel that things are going to escalate from here on?
I believe that it depends on the appetite of Pakistan Army and its leader. You know, they are a beleaguered army, having failed in Balochistan, KPK, and not very popular because of Imran Khan factor. But they have a very ambitious and radicalized leader in General Munir. So it really depends on that appetite of the Pakistan Army. They want to improve their image within Pakistan. And of course, General Munir has his own personal ambitions also. Also, it depends on how they react to international pressure which will start coming. They have a problem of economy. They have a problem of not having adequate resources, both military as well as non-military. And now it depends on how they come under the pressure from the foreign countries also, because the international community has already started telling them that, look, de-escalate. The de-escalation will have to start from that end, from the Pakistani end. As far as we are concerned, we are prepared to escalate if they continue to provoke us and if they continue to escalate.
Right. That, of course, is an important point, sir. You're saying that de-escalation has to stop now from the Pakistani end. Look at the kind of attacks, the drone attacks that have happened. Drone attacks in multiple locations. There were 36 locations along the line of control on the international border where there is very heavy firing taking place, where there is where we're seeing intrusions from the Pakistani Air Force as well. What does Pakistan want to do now? What we saw possibly 2 days ago, when there were about 300 drones which crossed into the Indian side, we were told by the armed forces and the MEA that it seems that these drones were on a reconnaissance mission to do surveillance, to gather intelligence and gain a sense of what India will do in response. Now we've been told that you've got drones which are entering Indian territory. These are kamikaze drones. These are Turkish drones with heavy payloads. You clearly want to inflict damage. There has been damage caused to heavily populated residential areas in Amritsar. So when now you shift your strategy, are we now entering what you call possibly a decisive period of this conflict?
May not be yet. Mind you, as I said, that in response to what happened in Pahalgam on 22nd of April, our response was quite measured, and we only hit 9 targets where the terrorists were being trained and being supported and indoctrinated. including the two headquarters, one in Bahawalpur and the other one in Muridke near Lahore. Now, they were the ones who responded in a different manner. And Pakistan Army started not only hitting civilian targets, not only along the line of control, but even farther away inside our territory. And apparently, this was an escalatory step that they had taken. Now, in order to respond to that escalatory step, we took further action from our side, which was a one notch higher. We have sent our message, and we have also sent not only on the ground, but verbally also we have conveyed it to them. And that message has gone that if you escalate, we are prepared to escalate. At the moment, they have only used either the drones or missiles and aerial combat. And we have responded accordingly. But we have tried to, since they have hit our military targets, we have also hit some of their military targets. Now, whether they want to continue the aerial actions or continue firing their missiles in our territory, or they want to cross the border somewhere to surprise us and to capture some of our territory, so that our next action will depend on that. But I can assure you that we are now ready in all respect. Whatever they do, we will be able to do one notch higher if they have not yet got the message. But it also, as I said, it depends on the appetite and the kind of image making that the Pakistan Army wants to do within their own country, in their domestic audience in Pakistan.
Right. General Malik, I'm going to take a short break, but I'll request you to stay with us. We're discussing a very important moment since the Pahalgam attack. Very important moment in Operation Sindhu. This could be a turning point in the current tensions. Either we're going to see a stop or possibly things will escalate from here on. We'll be right back with you, sir, after a break. We're now joined by General VP Malik, former Chief of Army Staff. General Malik, thank you for joining us on the program today. Let me once again ask you about India's statement, which came in from top government sources. And this would come after the Prime Minister's meeting with NSA Ajit Doval, General Malik, also with Defence Minister R.K. Singh and 3 service chiefs. So the fact that top government sources are saying this is a considered opinion. Now, when we say that you have to declare a war, we have been reading various reports, sir, and probably you can throw some light on it. Does the cabinet have to approve the declaration of war? According to many reports that we read, that finally it is the President of India, as the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, he has to declare war on the advice of the Council of Ministers and the Prime Minister. Would that be the right way, sir?
Parikshit, there is no norm for declaring a war. That whole concept is now over. And the kind of conflict situation that are taking place, not only between India and Pakistan, but all over, there is no declaration of war. But you start responding to the kind of combat situation or conflict situation that you are placed in. And I just want to recall that even during the Kargil war, we did not declare a war, and yet we took all the actions. That is one part of it. And that is what we are doing today also. In my view, in today's context, there is no need for anybody to start declaring a war. The second aspect that I want to mention is that our executive authority is under the Prime Minister. And the president is more for ceremonial purposes, although the president is the commander-in-chief. But the executive authority under the Prime Minister, they only need to keep the president informed. Now, in the executive authority, we have a committee of CCS, which is the Cabinet Committee of Security, headed by the Prime Minister. And it has 4 ministers: the Defense Minister, Foreign Minister, Finance Minister, and Home Minister. And they are the ones who take a decision. Now, apparently, this declaration was done by the Prime Minister. He would have got it okayed, or he would have discussed it with his colleagues in the CCS. And then he made a very important statement that any cross-border terrorism will be considered as an act of war. And when you use the word act of war, it opens up the kind of conflict scenario that we face, in which we can use any of our national assets, including the military, beside the diplomatic as well as the economic asset. And it gives much greater freedom to the armed forces to do the actions. Now, the main thing is that this has become necessary because now we have realized that terrorism has absolutely no tolerance as far as we are concerned. It's a zero, and we will not differentiate between the so-called terrorists who in any case function under the Pakistan military. So any action by the Pakistan military or their proxies of Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed will be considered, any cross-border terrorism will be considered as an act of war, and we will react accordingly.
Right. I would also like to ask you, sir, that today we are seeing a situation where India is also attacking multiple air bases in Pakistan, including an airbase very close to Rawalpindi, which is the headquarters of the Pakistani army. There is bound to be a reaction from the Pakistani side for that. General Munir cannot keep quiet. It'll be embarrassing for him to keep quiet or walk away from this. Having said that, is there now any surprise element in this grey war that we're seeing?
Yes. Look, we started engaging their Air Force assets and other missile assets only because they did it. Again, they took the initiative and they escalated, and then we responded accordingly. So they tried to cause damage, and we've suffered some minor damage here and there, but we have also been able to, thereafter, we have done more damage to them. They do not have much of a capacity. Our effort has been to reduce their capability to wage a war, and that's what we have done. Now, it depends on the mindset of the Pakistan Army, and particularly the Pakistan Army chief. If they want to escalate it, so be it. We are prepared for it. And we will again perhaps retaliate with one notch higher. Now, let's not forget that our capability compared to their capability is almost about 9 to 10 times much more. And they have to realize this. So let's see what will be the, where will they stop or where they want to stop. The de-escalation has to start from them, and that they have very many reasons to do so. But it depends on the kind of mad mindset that their leadership at the moment is following.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you so much, General Malik, for joining us. Clearly, we are in a very sensitive situation, very tense situation. Our thoughts and prayers with the armed forces. And as you said, the message from the Prime Minister's office, from the government today, that any future act of terrorism from Pakistan will be treated as an act of war and will be responded accordingly, will be a morale booster for our armed forces. It is a shift in our policy vis-a-vis Pakistan. Thank you once again, sir, for joining us on the program. We definitely are in a sensitive situation, and it is of utmost importance that we bring you only verified news. Several videos and pictures are being circulated on social media which are fake or are related to other past incidents. The fact that the fact-check unit of the Press Information Bureau has clarified on claims on social media. Santya Gora is joining me. Santya, over the last 24 hours, multiple, probably 15 to 20 such fake videos doing the rounds. You've compiled this for us. Tell us more.
So, Parikshit, India continues to destroy Pakistan's fake news propaganda, one fake claim, one fact at a time. Here are the top 5 fake claims and the truth behind them as of 5 p.m. The latest fake claim is that our Minister of External Affairs, S. Jaishankar, is apologizing. The fact is that it is an AI-generated video and part of false propaganda. The claim is absolutely fake. The second fake claim is that an Indian Air Force plane has crashed. PIB's fact-check unit has fact-checked this claim as well. The video being circulated is of an old Indian Air Force plane crash and is being shared out of context. The Indian government has clarified that the video shows a Jaguar aircraft that crashed in Ambala during a routine training sortie in March 2025. There is no truth to this claim as well. In another fake claim, Pakistan's fake news factory alleges that it has destroyed the Udhampur air base. Once again, the fake news factory has used an old unrelated video to spread misinformation. The video actually shows a fire incident at a chemical factory in Hanumangarh, Rajasthan. It is completely unrelated to the current India-Pakistan situation. This claim is fake. The next fake claim is that the Bhatinda airfield has been destroyed by Pakistan. This too is fake news. The Indian government has clarified that the Bhatinda airfield is fully operational and there is no damage whatsoever. Another fake claim targets our defense establishments. This one says, and it is falsely alleging that the Suratgarh and Sirsa Air Force stations have been attacked and destroyed by Pakistan. The Indian government has busted this fake claim as well. In fact, during the MEA briefing, pictures of both Air Force stations, both Suratgarh and Sirsa, were shown. These pictures had timestamps and these images proved that both stations are fully operational and that no such attack took place. The only way to defeat Pakistan's attempt to spread fake news and create panic is to rely on official and verified information. And we at CNBC TV 18 will continue to bring you truth behind these fake claims.
All right, Santya Gora, thank you very much for joining us. This is very important what Santya is reporting for us. And this is something at CNBC TV 18 we've been following ever since the Pahalgam attack happened. Help our viewers filter what's fake from what's genuine and verified. And it is very important to do so because what you're seeing is propaganda, and this is a cyber warfare on the part of Pakistan as well. And we cannot let them demoralize us or our armed forces. With that, it's a wrap on this special broadcast. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. Hello and welcome to our special broadcast of Operation Sindhu. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Here are the headlines we are tracking this hour. Top Indian government sources warn Pakistan that any future act of terror will be considered as an act of war against India and will be responded accordingly. Defense forces inflict extensive damage on Pakistani forces after they used long-range missiles, drones, fighter jets and heavy-caliber weapons to target 26 civilians and military locations last night. India strikes crucial military sites in Pakistan with precision weapons. The sites, most of which are located in Pakistan's Punjab province, housed technical infrastructure, command and control centers. The government says India ensured minimum collateral damage while carrying out the attacks. The Indian government busts Pakistan's claim of damaging key air bases in India, says all air bases are safe, shows time-stamped images of undamaged air bases. The government says claims of an S-400 system being destroyed are also fake, calls Pakistan's claims of Indian missiles hitting Afghanistan ludicrous. At least 5 prominent terrorists were killed in the Indian strikes in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir on May 7. These include senior commanders of the Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed. 32 airports across the northern and western India shut till May 15th due to increased military action on the Indo-Pak border. Passengers across other Indian airports asked to arrive at least 3 hours in advance due to heightened security. A bureaucrat and 3 others were killed in heavy shelling by Pakistan in Jammu and Kashmir overnight. Debris of drones and missiles found in towns bordering the line of control. Multiple explosions were heard over Srinagar this morning. The International Monetary Fund approves a $2.4 billion support package for Pakistan under 2 programs. India abstains from voting, raises concerns over the possible misuse of these funds for state-sponsored cross-border terror. Our top story this hour. Top government sources have warned Pakistan that any future act of terror against it will be considered as an act of war against India and will be responded accordingly. The latest missive comes from India as tensions at the border flare up. The Indian government said the defense forces inflicted extensive damage on Pakistani forces after they used long-range missiles, drones, fighter jets and heavy-caliber weapons to target 26 civilians and military locations overnight. India has also struck crucial military sites in Pakistan with precision weapons. The sites, most of which are located in Pakistan's Punjab province, housed technical infrastructure, command and control centers. The government said that India ensured minimum collateral damage while carrying out the attacks. The Indian government also busting Pakistan's claim of damaging key air bases in India. It said that all air bases are safe and showed time-stamped images of undamaged air bases. A bureaucrat and 3 others were killed in heavy shelling by Pakistan in Jammu and Kashmir overnight. Debris of drones and missiles found in towns bordering the line of control. Multiple explosions were heard over Srinagar this morning. We're now joined by General VP Malik, former Chief of the Army Staff, Indian Army. General Malik, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. First of all, let me get your reaction. You're someone who led the country during the Kargil War. Today, top government sources have said that any future act of terrorism from Pakistan against India will be treated as an act of war and India will respond accordingly. What's the significance and signal from this statement?
Good evening, Pariksha. I think it's an extremely important grand strategic, military strategic, and a message for military doctrines also. Now, grand strategy is political strategy. I'm referring to that. What we have clearly said that any act of terror on our side of the border will be an act of war, and we do not differentiate between the terrorists coming from the other side and their military. And therefore, our military strategy will be based on this mandate hereafter, which means that we can utilize whole of the nation strategy, our armed forces, all 3 of them, and even some more if required. They will be free to act as if we are in a state of war. And accordingly, our military doctrine, which has been quite soft while dealing with the terrorists, cross-border terrorism, I think now it will have to be changed because of this mandate which has now come from our political leadership. So it's a very important message for our armed forces. It is an important message for the whole nation, in fact. And I hope this message sinks in the Pakistan army and its leadership.
Could you give us a sense, is this also an indication, as you said, this is grand strategy, telling Pakistan, stop now before things get worse?
Yeah, that's right. And it is also indicative of absolute zero tolerance as far as cross-border terrorism is concerned. And people have to realize now on the other side that they cannot keep denying any acts of the terrorists which they have been breeding for such a long time. We've seen so many incidents in the past, and we have changed our strategy slightly by when we went on the other side of line of control for strategic cross-border act that we did. And also we went to Balakot, but they were not sufficient. This time we have now changed our mandate, political mandate, as well as our strategy. And that is why you see all the actions that have taken place, inclusive of the Indus Water Treaty held in abeyance, and many other types of action that we have taken diplomatically, economically, and Operation Sindhu. Operation Sindhu is just part of that strategy, the grand strategy that we are following. But hereafter, if we had not made it clear, I think in very simple words, it has been made clear to Pakistan that we shall not accept any cross-border terrorism. And if they do it, if they indulge in that, we will position ourselves as if we are fighting a war.
Right. When was the last time, General Malik, that India actually declared an act of war? Currently also, when we are almost in a warlike situation, or we are practically in a warlike situation, the government has not called it so. In our history, in our military history, was there an occasion when India said we are at war? And what is the procedure for declaring war?
Parikshit, last time when we declared a war, I'm using the word declared a war, that was in 1971. After that, the next war that we fought against them was in Kargil. We did not declare a war. And what I also want to tell you is that the definition of war is quite ambiguous. As far as we are concerned, we have been fighting this proxy war now for decades. And then there is a question of limited war. We fought in Kargil, we fought a limited war, limited to a frontage of about 160 kilometers. And again, there also we imposed a restriction on ourselves that we shall not cross the border and we shall not cross the international boundary also. So what we have, today's terminology is a grey war scene. What we are now fighting is a grey war, which is below the full-scale conventional war. And under these circumstances, nobody talks of declaring a war. We just react or we act as we see the kind of a combat situation that arises for us.
Right. Could you elaborate on that, sir? You're saying today we are fighting a grey war, which is below a full-scale war. How has the warlike scenario actually changed? Even right now, we're not looking at ground combat or ground incursions, at least for now. It is being fought in the air through drones. It is being fought in the cyberspace. Yes, Pakistani fighter jets have also intruded into our airspace, but we're not looking at ground-to-ground combat. So when you say that today we are fighting a grey war, not a conventional war, how have things changed?
Yeah, you know, this grey war that I have said, it could also be called a limited war. Because don't forget, at the moment we have not used our navy and we have not tried to cross the border anywhere. So it is still limited a war. We still have the capability to do much more, but we are not wanting to escalate it beyond this level. And right from the beginning, we have been declaring that our response has been very measured, very responsible, and non-escalatory. So when you are doing this kind of fighting, then it comes under the, I would say, the definition of either a limited war or a grey war. And today we are not utilizing our full resources, our capabilities. As I told you, Navy is still not really got involved in the war, and nor we have taken any action to cross the border if we need to. We have those capabilities, but we have declared ourselves that we are not interested in doing that unless we are forced to escalate from their side. At the moment, as we see it, that all the actions, right from the beginning, the actions starting from in Pahalgam massacre, now all that has been very, very provocative and escalatory. But as far as we are concerned, we just want to respond to that. We do not want to escalate it further. That is where I'm counting it, that it is below the conventional war.
Right. But I would like to also speak to you about the briefing that was addressed to by the Army and the External Affairs Ministry earlier today. They said that Pakistan is moving troops to the border, which is a concerning sign of escalation. At the same time, Pakistani fighter jets, they have entered our airspace. There were dogfights. They were engaged by our forces successfully. When you do things of this kind and also fire high-speed missiles, does this in any way indicate that Pakistan is backing down, or do you feel that things are going to escalate from here on?
I believe that it depends on the appetite of Pakistan Army and its leader. You know, they are a beleaguered army, having failed in Balochistan, KPK, and not very popular because of Imran Khan factor. But they have a very ambitious and radicalized leader in General Munir. So it really depends on that appetite of the Pakistan Army. They want to improve their image within Pakistan. And of course, General Munir has his own personal ambitions also. Also, it depends on how they react to international pressure which will start coming. They have a problem of economy. They have a problem of not having adequate resources.
Cuts with Pakistan state was defeated. Bharat was not able to do it. This perhaps is the biggest moment in Bharat's strategic posture, that as a nation we've been able to convince the world that this is the condition that applies. An act of terror is equal to act of war, and if Bharat has credible evidence to show that it's emanated from Pakistan, it's against the entire Pakistan state. Somewhere do you believe that this is perhaps the first time that Bharat is actually setting the terms and conditions? So the terms and conditions apply are very strict ones, and it's not multiple lines, that it's just one line.
Yeah, you know, I think it's absolutely critical because for the last 30 years, Pakistan has been using this proxy warfare, bleeding India by 1,000 cuts. And every time, you know, India asks for accountability, there's plausible deniability. Pakistan says we have nothing to do with these fellows are non-state actors. That excuse no longer holds. But I believe J.D. Vance has also now tweeted. So the Vice President has tweeted, the President, of course, making this official on his Truth Social account, the Secretary of State, who's played a very critical role in mediating between India and Pakistan, he's also put it out on X. So I guess, you know, three very senior members of the cabinet of Donald Trump have put this out now there in the public domain. So they can't be wrong.
Like I said, has also put it out on his X handle.
Will come up in the next few minutes. But I think you're right about, you know, the problem was there is something called the Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism. Yeah. It never got adopted by the United Nations. Prime Minister Modi has been talking about this since he became PM in 2014. We have to have a standard and acceptable international definition for what constitutes terrorism.
All right, the big story we are tracking right now, US President Donald Trump, he has announced that after a long night of talks mediated by the United States, both Pakistan and India have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire. Congratulations to both nations on using common sense and great intelligence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, this tweet has also been shared by US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. This is a post that was put up by Donald Trump on Truth Social. He went on to say, and I quote him again, "After a long night of talks mediated by the United States, I'm pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire. Congratulations to both nations for common sense and great intelligence." Just a while back, top government sources had told us that any future act of terrorism by Pakistan against India will be treated as an act of war, and India will respond accordingly. This was India asking Pakistan to stop now. It's quite clear that there have been a lot of back-channel negotiations, back-channel talks going on. The US is playing a critical role. We had Marco Rubio calling up both External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar, and what was significant that he did not only speak to Shehbaz Sharif, yesterday he spoke to General Asim Munir. He knew that this was a war, in a way, being perpetrated by the Pakistani army. They are the ones who have a lot at stake. It is in their interest to keep perpetrating this war against India. And it seems that the US has played a critical role in bringing this war to a hold as of now. We're awaiting clarity as to the terms of the ceasefire, but it seems that India has conveyed that if you now make any act of terror against India, or any military action for that matter, both will be treated similarly, and we will target you. We will respond very, very strongly. Over the last 3 days, we've seen very intense engagement between the militaries of India and Pakistan. We've been using fighter jets, drone technology, anti-aircraft guns, artillery, heavy mortar, heavy machine guns against both sides. Pakistan was the original escalator here. They were the ones who triggered the Pahalgam attack. They supported the terrorists who went into Pahalgam, killed innocent tourists. India has been responding to the original escalation. We've eliminated 8 or 9 terror camps on Pakistan's soil. They retaliated by trying to hit our air bases and also civilian areas. Let's not forget, 15 to 20 civilians have been killed in this terrible, terrible attack. On sources, we're now getting information from our sources that the stopping of firing and military action between India and Pakistan was worked out directly between the two countries. The Pakistan DGMO initiated a call. He initiated a call this afternoon, after which discussions took place and understanding was reached. There is no decision to hold talks on any other issue at any other place. Let's put this out once again. We are breaking this. This is coming from government sources right now. The stopping of firing and military action between India and Pakistan was worked out directly between the two nations. This is what Indian government sources are saying. The Pakistan DGMO initiated the call this afternoon, after which discussions took place and an understanding was reached. So India is saying it was Pakistan here who reached out to India to quieten the situation and the matter. There is no decision to hold talks on any other issue at any other place. Let me go across to Venu Rajamani Rao, India's former ambassador and press secretary to the Prime Minister as well. Ambassador Rajamani, thank you very much for joining us. Very important information coming in. Let me first ask you to throw some light on what Donald Trump has said, that after a long night of talks mediated by the US, he's pleased to announce a full and comprehensive and immediate ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Would it be your understanding that things have now come to a complete halt as far as this war between India and Pakistan goes?
Akshat, I think we are close to an end of the hostilities that we have seen. I wouldn't call it a war yet, but certainly there was hostilities between the two countries. And we all know that Secretary Marco Rubio has been walking the phone, speaking to both sides. Similarly, the Saudi government, the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, visited both the countries. The Foreign Minister has been speaking to the leaders of the two countries. So certainly both these countries must have played a role behind the scenes, which then led to the call from the Pakistan DGMO and conversation between the two DGMOs, which is moving towards a ceasefire. We are aware that the government has announced some kind of a press conference shortly. So we would probably get more details in that. And also through sort of unofficial sources providing briefings, media channels are talking about India declaring some kind of a doctrine saying that if there is a terrorist attack, we will treat it like an act of war and we will retaliate immediately. So all this is preparations for both sides to save their faces, to claim victories, and then bring an end to the hostilities. I think an end to the hostilities is most welcome more than anything else for the civilians on the two sides of the border who have been suffering. And while we pull back from this particular precipice where we were standing on, let us hope that we will also eventually work towards longer-term solutions which are viable and sustainable.
So you're saying, sir, we are close to an end of hostilities, or we have ended the hostilities?
We have to see what the government says. We do not have an official confirmation from anyone from either one side. So at the press conference, I'm sure they would announce a little more details of what was discussed and agreed upon by the two DJMOs. But at the same time, let me say that this remains a fragile peace. The India-Pakistan tensions and the Kashmir conflict remains a frozen conflict. So a breakdown can happen anytime. Tensions can break down. Tensions can break out once again any moment. So we need to be prepared for this eventuality. And as I said, we need to work towards longer-term, durable, sustainable peace. It involves ending terrorism coming out of Pakistan. At the same time, it also involves addressing some of the long-standing issues in India-Pakistan relations. Let us see if the governments have the maturity to move towards that.
All right, let me also welcome Ambassador Sajjanar. Ambassador Sajjanar, very important news coming in. The Indian government also now saying that the cessation of hostilities or the current ceasefire was agreed to by the two countries. Hectic backdoor negotiations must have been going on. Could you throw some light on the kind of role the US played in this, and what about Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, I think both these countries, United States, Marco Rubio has been speaking to our External Affairs Minister, I think 2 days ago. He spoke to Dr. Jaishankar. He also spoke to Shehbaz Sharif. Then, it is reported that he spoke again to the Foreign Minister and Deputy Prime Minister of Pakistan and also to the Army Chief. I think it had become quite clear over the last few days that notwithstanding the Pakistani bravado, that, continuing this conflict, continuing the hostilities was quite untenable as far as Pakistan is concerned. So I think they would have made this move. And of course, Mr. Trump is always not only ready and willing, but very keen to take credit, even where, the credit that might accrue to America might be rather tenuous. So, he would have jumped in and claimed credit. But I would give credit also to Marco Rubio that he's been working hard in establishing some sort of a ceasefire between the two sides. So I would think that India has very effectively proved its point. I do sincerely hope that, there is no commitment that has been given on the Indus Waters Treaty, etc., because, that is at the Cabinet Committee on Security on the 23rd, on security. On 23rd, we had said that IWT is being kept in abeyance till Pakistan irrevocably and demonstrably stops its support to terrorism. And that, of course, we have not seen. So,
Ambassador Sajjanar, from your own experience and your long career in the Foreign Service, would you know if we will ever get to know the terms of this ceasefire?
I think, basically, as far as India is concerned, India is going to have a press conference very shortly. So I think some details will be shared with the media and with the world outside.
I just want to share, sir, what's just coming in via government sources. I'm sure both you and Ambassador Rajamani can throw some light on it. Government sources, minutes after President Trump posted this on Truth Social, government sources have said the stoppage of firing and military action between India and Pakistan was worked out directly between the two nations. The Pak DGMO initiated the call this afternoon, after which discussions took place and an understanding was reached. There is no decision to hold talks on any other issue at any other place. So what's your reading of the government stand as to how this was reached?
My understanding of the government stand is that what we said on the 8th morning, after we had conducted Operation Sindhu, we had attacked these 5 positions in POK and 4 positions in Punjab, which were the terrorist holdouts, strongholds, etc.
All right, Ambassador Sajjanar, I'm going to request you to hold on, and I'll request Ambassador Rajamani also. The briefing by the Ministry of External Affairs has begun. Let's cut across to that.
Given on both sides to give effect to this understanding, the Directors General of Military Operations will talk again on the 12th of May at 1200 hours. Thank you.
A statement there made by the Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri. He went on to say that, yes, an understanding has been reached after the two countries spoke to each other. The Pak DGMO had initiated the call this afternoon, after which discussions took place and an understanding was reached. And the DGMOs of the two countries will be talking again on the 12th of May. Now, let me go back to Venu Rajamani at this point. Ambassador Rajamani, dramatic things taking place. Just this morning, we were thinking that possibly this is going to be an all-out conflict. Then you had the DGMOs talking, and we believe that all of this has developed over the last few hours. The Foreign Secretary made a very brief statement. Why do you think it was so brief? And he has left by saying that the ceasefire has been agreed upon from 1700 hours today.
Parikshit, all along, I think it is the news channels in India which have been engaging in some kind of a war hysteria, while the statements from the foreign ministry, the foreign secretary, was always very sober. If you would see all the statements that was issued, the emphasis was on responsible behavior, on precision targeting, and on restraint, appropriateness, proportionateness, etc. Even today, when the foreign minister spoke to Secretary Mark Rubio, his response was to say responsible and measured actions will be there from India. If you look at the news reports coming out of Pakistan, the Pakistan foreign minister had also issued a statement saying that we are ready for a ceasefire if India would stop its attacks. So clearly, all the background discussions which have been going with the United States and with Saudi Arabia have played a role in bringing both countries towards this conclusion. Quite obviously, India in particular, but perhaps even Pakistan, does not want to give all the credit to the US or to Saudi Arabia. Therefore, India is pointing out and highlighting the fact that Pak DGMO made a call, and this is a result of that. And the Foreign Secretary's statement being so terse and so brief is just because details still have to fall in. A decision has been taken at a high political level to have a ceasefire. We do not want any more deaths. We do not want any more casualties. We do not want any more destruction. So the leaders want to put the ceasefire into effect immediately, and then look at what other details require to be sorted out. So that is what would happen in the next call of the two DGMOs.
So you're saying, sir, Saudi Arabia and UAE have played a role in the ceasefire?
Saudi Arabia and the US. Sorry if I misspoke.
Saudi Arabia and the US. And who do you think had a greater role here? Because it was a Saudi Minister of State who came to India unannounced, and he also went to Pakistan, and the message and mission was clear: de-escalation. So would you say it is the Saudis who've played the most important role behind the scenes?
I think both had a role to play, but clearly the US is the bigger and the more important partner for both India and Pakistan. You also saw that the IMF passed the proposal to release $1 billion to Pakistan. And this would have been possible only with US support. US is the biggest player, the largest shareholder within IMF. So the US holds a lot of cards of leverage over Pakistan in particular, but also with regard to India by virtue of the very close relationship that we enjoy. And ultimately, if you look at all the reactions which have come from countries across the world, everybody has called for de-escalation. Nobody wants to see an India-Pakistan conflict at this point of time or at any time. And every country has been hoping for this ceasefire.
All right.
The US has shown leadership in trying to speak to the two sides, bring them together and put it in place.
All right. Let me now play that soundbite of Vikram Misri once again, the Foreign Secretary addressing the media. Let's listen in.
Director General of Military Operations of Pakistan called the Director General of Military Operations of India at 15:35 hours earlier this afternoon. It was agreed between them that both sides would stop all firing and military action on land and in the air and sea with effect from 1700 hours Indian Standard Time today. Instructions have been given on both sides to give effect to this understanding. The Directors General of Military Operations will talk again on the 12th of May at 1200 hours. Thank you.
All right, so you've heard Vikram Misri there saying that the details will be announced later. The DGMOs will meet again on the 12th of May. Let me now get in Ambassador Sajjanhar at this point. Ambassador Sajjanhar, would you agree that the IMF bailout that happened yesterday, a lot of people were quite disappointed by that, but we also have to understand the US has a disproportionate share of votes, economic might because of its size and size of its economy at the IMF. Somewhere that IMF bailout was a face saver for Pakistan.
Yeah, that definitely would have been the carrot that would have been sort of, dangled in front of Pakistan. Because, India had expressed its reservations earlier in the past also about this bailout, and the IMF needs to go in terms of where this money that is going to Pakistan is being utilized. So definitely that would have been a carrot in front of Pakistan. And in fact, Pakistan had, in the parlance that has been very common these days, had no cards. Pakistan had no cards. It couldn't have gone into an all-out conflict. It couldn't even have, continued with the hostilities, because look at its energy situation, look at its, the petrol, diesel, look at its economic situation. So it's really no position to have continued with this. So it was waiting, for some sort of a face-saving proposition. And that was the IMF deal that was struck yesterday. So I think it is, as far as India is concerned, what I was telling you earlier when, the Foreign Secretary's statement was played out, was basically we had outlined our position on the 8th morning, that we have done what we needed to do in terms of avenging and getting justice for the Pahalgam attack on the 22nd. We have done what we had to do, and now the ball is very much in Pakistan's court. And Pakistan, after that, started to retaliate, to escalate, and we have behaved in a very responsible manner. We have behaved in a very precise manner. We have not hit the civilians. We have hit their military establishments, as Pakistan has been doing, in the same domain and proportionately. So I think India's objectives have been very well served and realized.
All right. Ambassador Rajamani, if I can bring you in, if the IMF bailout was the face saver for Pakistan, what, according to you, would be the bailout for India? Or the face saver for India, sorry.
Well, as Ambassador Sajjanhar was pointing out, many of our immediate goals of this action probably have been achieved. We still need to look at it a few days, maybe a few months down the line and review what was done, what was achieved, what was lost. But if the purpose was to send a political message to Pakistan that we will not take terrorist actions lying down, that we will retaliate and we will retaliate with might, also that we have the ability to go into Pakistan and target with precision known terrorist hideouts and terrorists, we have sent that message loud and clear to Pakistan. However, the problem of terrorism per se still remains unresolved. This one action, or even the doctrine that many news sources are saying that India has newly adopted, which will see any terrorist action as a declaration of war, even whether this doctrine is going to stop terrorism towards India, there is absolutely no clarity. To stop terrorism, we need to convert India into some kind of a fortress India, like the US has made themselves post 9/11. We should ensure through our own internal security means that another Pahalgam never again happens in the future. That is the only way, or that is the best possible way of ensuring that more terrorist incidents don't happen within India. But going beyond that, we must establish some kind of a modus vivendi with Pakistan. A state of a complete stalemate in India-Pakistan relations, a complete lack of dialogue, even if it is informal or if it is back channel, and a complete stoppage to the search to find solutions to our problems and move to a better future has to continue and has to happen over the long term. So there are many questions that this whole action leaves unanswered as we move into the ceasefire, which is most welcome. The actual perpetrators of Pahalgam are still not captured or neutralized. Masood Asar is still out there. Hafiz Syed is still out there. Yes, we now have news reports coming, and I say news reports that some 5 terrorists were killed. But over 100 people were killed in that action, according to the Indian Defense Minister itself, which means there were also a large number of civilians there who probably became collateral damage. So I think a large number of questions are still unanswered, and only time will bring answers to them. Also, the use of drones in an India-Pakistan conflict, the use of missiles, which is for the first time, offers lessons to both sides for the future, and both sides will probably prepare to wage this kind of a war even more effectively through fresh rearmament. So I think problems between India and Pakistan are still far from being resolved and require a lot more persistent, consistent effort by both countries.
Right. And just to read this out for our viewers again, at around 3 p.m. this afternoon, talks were initiated, and after which there was a ceasefire declared on air, on land and sea. And the DGMOs are going to talk once again. And we had seen a very intense military operation between India and Pakistan over the last 2 days or so. What message do you think, Master Rajamani, has India sent out with this operation, with the manner in which it responded? Do you feel that this was, Operation Sindhu was a significant shift in India's policy vis-a-vis Pakistan-sponsored terrorism?
We will and we can retaliate to terrorist incidents. And as far as we are concerned, this is an act of self-defense permitted by the UN Charter. Many insiders in the government would tell you that even Balakot was not the first retaliation. Even before, there have been acts of retaliation within Pakistan, but the difference was that the government never publicized it. So Balakot was the first incident when we went public with it. And this, of course, Operation Sindhu takes it to a new stage where we not just publicized it, but we virtually engaged in hostilities bordering on war or near war or equivalent to war. We will have to find the right terminology to describe what happened. But the use of drones, the use of missiles are all a new element in it, just as much as India's capability to precisely target Murid K and other such places within Pakistan. So this certainly sends a message regarding India's capabilities. It also showed our air defense, though perhaps the first phase of drones which were sent to India was testing India's air defenses to see where our weaknesses lie. We have sent a message to Pakistan that we will not accept this, we will not take this lying down. I'm sure Pakistan has registered that message, but then we need to continue to try and find ways and means of dealing with the issues in India-Pakistan relations. Most important of all, the terrorism which emerges from Pakistan and targets India.
All right. Let me also go across to Air Marshal Kapil Kak. Air Marshal Kak, thank you so much for joining us on the program. A very important development in light of the conflict between India and Pakistan over the last few days. What's your reading of the present situation? Donald Trump announced this on Truth Social, saying that I'm pleased to announce a full and complete ceasefire. The Indian government said that this was negotiated directly between the two countries. It was the Pakistani DGMO which initiated this call. What's your reading and understanding of the present situation?
I have been, over the last 3 days or so, mentioning on numerous channels that it's only a matter of days that one will find ways and means to somehow conclude this. You just mentioned that Donald Trump spoke of it, and the two sides then said this was directly between them. Frankly, I've taken part in 2 wars and have been following the India-Pakistan pretty closely. I believe that this is the role has been that of Donald Trump, Mohammed bin Zayed from UAE, and some friends of India and Pakistan who have worked hard through nimble diplomacy, back-channel work, and gentle nudges and pressures on two countries that this is not the way forward for you. It's also simultaneously a realization by both sides, I think far more by Pakistan than by India, because India has ushered in a new strategic and counter politico-military doctrine that thresholds of tolerance insofar as terror is concerned, a new threshold has been established. We will recall that this is also in the past, as was mentioned by the earlier panelist, about whether it was reaction to Uri or the surgical strikes and then Balakot. And so one knew last 6 years incidents weren't happening. It is just that a new military leadership in Pakistan felt very adventurous, was tied in a corner because of their own domestic pressures, that the decision was taken to do Pahalgam. No doubt in this anybody's mind that it was the work of the deep state in Pakistan through their proxies wherever they are. The third point, which is very, very important, is that we have now established that the situation as of 12 o'clock or 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock, whatever time the decision was made, that we have moved from a near limited conflict to edges of a limited conventional war. So from there, it was only a question of getting into a limited conventional war, as in the past in 1971, and that wouldn't have been good for either India or Pakistan. Another point of worthy of note is we never got boots on the ground, both sides. We had boots in the air, which is this new nature of war of just drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, not crossing boundaries through physical application of force, but indirect application of force through the air medium. And so, therefore, air power has acquired even greater salience compared to the last 25 years as it emerged as a powerful instrument of national policy. Very many lessons have been learned, but I think I will come to a stop here and say that disinformation and information war, for example, has assumed new proportions, and we were, unfortunately, both sides do not do too well in the information and communication strategy. There were very many gaps in that. That we have learned the lesson for urgent de-escalation when the situation tended to get out of control is one more lesson, and that for the international community, as they've always done, they have played their role to ensure that nuclear weapon powers cannot afford to escalate situation and manage the escalation ladder climb without a sense of total responsibility. I think these are some of the points. If you have any specific questions, I would be able to answer.
Right. Marshal Kak, the question that I'd like to ask you, India used almost all its air defense arsenal, our cutting-edge weapons, our fighter aircraft in this operation. We dominated the skies. We hit several key air bases in Pakistan over the last 2 days. We hit air radars, Chinese radar systems in Lahore, 8 bases in Pakistan this morning and early hours of this morning as well. What are the lessons that you feel India should take away from this high-intensity conflict which we've seen over the last 2 days?
I think you put a very thoughtful question on the table, Sanjay. I'd like to offer a very simple point. If we see India's grand strategy, what is India's grand strategy for a situation like this? It emanates from the fact that we are committed to war prevention as a strategy, because that is necessary for us to come to 2047 as a global power. And for a global power, behavior is very important. Strategic constructs to exhibit that behavior are also very much in place. So if you recall from the Prime Minister's statement right till today, the actions that were taken by India as a counter to the huge escalation by Pakistan in Baisaran and Pahalgam in Kashmir was that we will hit the terror infrastructure and send a signal that terrorism as a state policy is unacceptable to India. It is well at the threshold of tolerance, and punishment will be imposed. And that is precisely what we did on the 7th morning between 1:44 or 2 o'clock or so. 27 minutes, 24 targets specifically hit, and we sit back. And now it's for the other party to decide whether they want to escalate. What you said is very important. All this high intensity, low duration conflagration arose out of the fact that Pakistan chose to raise the level of escalation. So India had no choice but to keep climbing that escalation ladder, but have the control entirely in its own hands. That's what happens in escalation matrix. The dynamics are such that a superior power has to control that climb. And that is what India has actually sent as a lesson to Pakistan, the world, and the region, that it will behave like a responsible power, but it will use all the might at its disposal. As you rightly pointed out, range of weapons have been employed. The lesson for the others is that excellent planning has ensured that our air defenses, the finest lesson is that quality of the air defense of India has been very, very high quality. And the lesson now for the government is that given the past use of force over the last 3 days, we have to continue the process of ensuring that India's air power is not allowed to decelerate in its quality, in its impact in terms of the strategic outcomes that it will achieve for the country's national interest in a given zone.
Right. Yes. Marshal Kak, one more question that I would like to ask you. Yes, India was a stronger power in this. We took at least a week or 10 days to respond militarily to the Pakistani terrorgrams after the Pahalgam attack. We did not do any knee-jerk reaction. We must have clearly weighed our options diplomatically, economically, militarily, and then responded. We had probably worked out how much this is going to escalate or what Pakistan could possibly do. When you go into a situation when you carry out drone attacks, missile attacks on terror camps in Pakistan, in the territory of an adversary, there is bound to be a cost of war. And that happened. So India must have calculated that. Do you feel that somewhere the United States knew that it held the purse strings to Pakistan, for Pakistan, and the IMF bailout that happened last night? Many felt that it was sad that the US allowed that to happen, but that possibly could have been the key that United States had to stop things and make Pakistan commit to this ceasefire, because it was the Pakistani DGMO which initiated talks.
No, frankly, this would have been worked out behind the curtains. I don't think a Pakistan DGMO would have spoken to the Indian DGMO, and that would have been the beginning of the process of this wise decision to call off this conflict. I'm not a party to that thought process. Why do I say that? You raised two very, very crucial points. One is that why did it take us 10 to 12 days to react? Just go back to Balakot. It was a much simpler operation, very, very minutely limited to a few buildings, not far from the border and line of control, and yet we took that time. Why do we take that time? Let me assure you and your viewers that our armed forces at the apex level would have computer simulated and war gamed every scenario that you have seen over the last 85 hours or so. Every single scenario. So what this time was to put in place those mechanisms. If this happens, what do we do? If this happens, what do we do? So there are at least 20, 25 scenarios below the conventional war threshold. They would have war gamed, they would have been ready with it, and therefore also give time for the international community, as also Pakistan, to think, look, you will be expecting it somewhere. And then Pakistan had to get on greater level of alert than us, because they knew there would be a reaction. And we also knew, I have no doubt in my mind, I don't think any thinking Indian would have think Pakistan would have done nothing. Pakistan would react, and we expected that reaction. So I think the lesson is a textbook lesson for India as also for Pakistan. I think two other points you made is between the application of force and the initial reaction, holding the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance, reducing those diplomatic moves were preparatory to what Pakistan was messaged about the way force was coming its way. What that force would be, where it would be, how it would be, is a completely different set of questions. But I think both countries have been wise, because I said that the effect of this war would be Pakistan would have far greater consequential impact than India would have.
Right. Let's, Air Marshal Kak, I'm going to request you to stay on with us. What Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said, and it was almost a 1-minute statement, just a 1-minute bite that he gave in what was supposed to be a press conference. He made that comment. He did not take questions and walked away. Let's listen in. Let's play that out for our viewers.
Director General of Military Operations of Pakistan called the Director General of Military Operations of India at 15:35 hours earlier this afternoon. It was agreed between them that both sides would stop all firing and military action on land and in the air and sea with effect from 1700 hours Indian Standard Time today. Instructions have been given on both sides to give effect to this understanding. The Directors General of Military Operations will talk again on the 12th of May at 1200 hours. Thank you.
All right, let me go back to Air Marshal Kak at this point. Air Marshal Kak, after this, considering that Pakistan-sponsored terror will not stop like this, we have to have a long-term strategy. But it is now very important for India to keep its defenses up, because acts like Pahalgam can happen again. And for the long term, considering that we've demonstrated strength right now, Pakistan will also try and catch up in some way or the other. We have seen the kind of Turkish drones which were also used. We have seen the kind of Chinese fighters which were used against India. And literally, in a way, that Turkey and China were coming to Pakistan's direct rescue in this operation. It has been a learning for China as well as to how their equipment has worked in a warlike situation or actual wartime. Same for Turkey. Do you feel now it would be very important for India to ramp up its defense spending, make sure we get those cutting-edge weapons, we fill up those gaps in our Air Force, as far as the fighter fleet, the fighter strength is concerned?
This is a set of conversations which we can do, Sanjay, for hours. But the point that you have made, and I'd like to, before I react to you, the nature of the statement made by the Foreign Secretary itself demonstrates and validates what I mentioned to you as I started this conversation, that this is not a decision at the level of the DGMOs. It is perhaps a decision arrived at between the NSAs of the two countries, General Asim Malik from the Pakistani side and Mr. Ajit Doval from our side. And that in any case would have also been influenced by a great degree of the international community's nudges and pointers and indicators over the last 85 hours. That is my concluding comment on how this ceasefire was brought about. As to your question, I have been an advocate of, and I've been fighting this in the public domain fiercely, that the air power has been allowed to get diluted over the last decade or so. And there are multiple reasons. There's always an issue of, to use a cliche, bread and butter. But in this case, the fact of multiple role combat aircraft, 126, which, for example, were agreed to and processed over a period of a decade. And suddenly that number from 126 came to 36. And I've been asking the Air Force and the Ministry of Defense and the government in power through the public domain, where are those 90 aircraft?
Yeah. All right.
And you have raised, I'm glad you raised this point. It's not just the aircraft, force multipliers, the precision strike weapons, which have demonstrated amazing, fascinating capabilities in the conflagration, which has been so low in terms of duration. So if this was to stretch to 10 to 15 days, what would have been the situation? I couldn't agree with you more that we have to take out the textbooks and the computers, redo our sums, and see that we cannot afford to have less than 2%. I'm talking about 1.59 and 1.6% of GDP on defense. In terms of central government expenditure, hovering at about 12 to 13%. This is clearly unacceptable. Unless you determine what is the level of military capability we seek, and we do everything to ensure that that preparedness level in the Air Force and the platforms and the force multipliers and the precision strike weapons, whether air-to-air or air-to-ground, are available. We would be getting into another problem whenever, as you feared, and I think the world will fear, this time it was after 6 years. I don't know, maybe it will be 10 years from now this may happen again. It is most unlikely that Pakistan, under whatever military leadership, will continue terrorism against India at the level. And lastly, one lesson which Pakistan has learned to its sorrow is the Jammu and Kashmir, the people of Jammu and Kashmir, which it was sought to be helping morally, diplomatically, in every sense, have reacted most adversely to the Pahalgam attack. And it's all the more reason that our government must reach out to the people of Kashmir. You saw the Omar Abdullah, the Chief Minister of the state, former Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti, who was in tears, was appealing to people in Pakistan, as also the leadership in the rest of India, that who's affected by this. Last 2 days of conflict affected the people of Kashmir the most. And the Pakistanis is propagandizing that we survived to help the Kashmiris, and whereas the maximum damage has been done to the Kashmiris. All the artillery barrages that have taken place from there, almost more or less continuously along the line of control, stretching from Uri to Punch, Rajouri, Naushera, Araspura, has affected Kashmir. So politically, that is one more lesson the government of India must take, that the people of Kashmir, the tourism which has been impacted, fortunately, it will get back very soon. I showed to Kashmiris across society. Just 2 days ago, I was in Kashmir, and I said, I'll come back once the situation is stable, and it will. And therefore, if that is accompanied by some reach out, some degree of sensitivity towards the people by the government of India, we would be in a far better and far healthier politico-military situation than we had been in the last 3 years.
All right. M. Ashokak, thank you so much for joining us with those comprehensive views. Always appreciate your views here on CNBC TV 18. We leave it there for the moment. Big news coming in. India and Pakistan have announced a ceasefire. This was formally announced by the Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri in a short statement. Let me read out that statement for you right now. Vikram Misri made that statement at the Ministry of External Affairs in the national capital. Before that, government sources had said that Pakistan had initiated DGMO talks, and this ceasefire was worked out directly by the two countries. I'm just reading out the statement of the Foreign Secretary. The DGMOs of Pakistan spoke at 15:35 hours this afternoon. It was agreed between them that both sides would stop all firing and military action on land, in air and sea with effect from 5 p.m. today. Instructions have been given to both sides to give effect to the understanding. The Director Generals of Military Operations will talk again on the 12th of May at 1200 hours. Before that, US President Donald Trump had tweeted to say that he's very pleased to announce a full and complete ceasefire. Just yesterday, we had seen how the IMF had allowed a bailout for Pakistan. India had objected and abstained from that vote. US has a disproportionate share of votes when it comes to the IMF, and clearly they had the purse strings, and as Ambassador Venu Rajamani was also pointing out, it was the United States and Saudi Arabia which have played a critical role in these back-channel talks. Marco Rubio also tweeted out what Donald Trump had said on Truth Social. After a long night of talks between India and Pakistan, and these talks were mediated by India, both countries have agreed to a full and complete ceasefire. I'm glad that common sense has prevailed and both governments have come to stop the hostilities between the two nations. We are getting a lot of information. In a short while from now, we will be seeing a press conference by the Defense Ministry, and we are seeing officials come on stage. This is at the Ministry of External Affairs. You are seeing Wing Commander Vyomika Singh. You are seeing Colonel Sophia Qureshi. And we are now cutting across to that press conference.
Commodore Ravi Nair, Colonel Sophia Qureshi, and Wing Commander Vyomika Singh to brief you. With that, I hand over the floor to Commodore Nair.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As the Foreign Secretary had said, you're aware there's an understanding that has been reached to stop all military activities at sea, on the air and on the land. And the Indian Navy, Indian Army and the Indian Air Force have been instructed to adhere to this understanding. Since the tragic events at Pahalgam, you're aware that our responses have been measured and very responsible. Details of these have been shared with you over the past few days through our various press briefings.
what has also happened is that there is a significant amount of misinformation that is being undertaken from the other side. And as a professional military organization, we thought it is also our duty to dispel those misinformation aspects, as also state the facts of the case as they stand. Towards that, I will now hand over to my colleague, Colonel Qureshi.
नमस्कार। अब मैं आपको पाकिस्तान की मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन कैंपेन के बारे में अवगत कराऊंगी। पहला, पाकिस्तान ने यह क्लेम किया कि उसने अपने JF-17 से हमारे S-400 व ब्रह्मोस मिसाइल बेस को नुकसान पहुंचाया, जो कि बिल्कुल गलत है। दूसरा, उसका यह भी मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन कैंपेन था कि हमारी एयरफील्ड, जो कि सिरसा, जम्मू, पठानकोट, बठिंडा, नलिया और भुज में है, ये उसका मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन भी बहुत गलत है। तीसरा, पाकिस्तान के मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन कैंपेन के मुताबिक हमारे एम्यूनिशन डंप्स जो चंडीगढ़ और बियास में है, उसका डैमेज हुआ, यह भी बिल्कुल गलत है। हमने आपको मॉर्निंग ब्रीफिंग में बताया था विद फैक्ट्स एंड फिगर के साथ कि ये सारी चीजें बिल्कुल सही सलामत हैं। अब मैं आपको बताना चाहती हूँ कि पाकिस्तान के एक प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में ये बात की गई थी कि उनके सीनियर मिलिट्री ऑफिसर्स, जो कि पूरी तरह से ये भ्रामक है और तथ्यों से दूर है, कि पाकिस्तान की ओर से ये झूठा आरोप भी लगाया जा रहा है कि भारतीय सेना ने मस्जिदों को नुकसान पहुंचाया। मैं इससे बिल्कुल स्पष्ट करना चाहती हूं कि इंडिया इज ए सेक्युलर नेशन और हमारी सेना भारत के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज की एक बहुत प्यारी झलक है। इंडियन आर्म्ड फोर्सेस ने पाकिस्तान को बहुत भारी नुकसान पहुंचाया, उनके मिलिट्री इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स को, चाहे वो लैंड एसेट्स हो या फिर उनके एयर एसेट्स। यही नहीं, इंडियन आर्म्ड फोर्सेस ने पाकिस्तान की एयरफील्ड स्कर्दू, जकोबाबाद, सरगोदा और बुलारी को बहुत नुकसान पहुंचाया। इसके अलावा पाकिस्तान के एयर डिफेंस सिस्टम, रडार सिस्टम, उनको भी एयर स्पेस में अनटेनेबल किया। यह भी बताना चाहती हूँ कि लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल के पास पाकिस्तान के कमांड एंड कंट्रोल, लॉजिस्टिक इंस्टॉलेशन और उनके मिलिट्री इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, मिलिट्री पर्सनल का इतना भारी नुकसान हुआ कि पाकिस्तान की ऑफेंसिव व डिफेंसिव कैपेबिलिटी को नष्ट कर दिया गया। अंत में मैं फिर से ये बात दोहराना चाहूंगी, इंडियन आर्म्ड फोर्सेस पूरी तरह से तैयार है, सतर्क है और भारत की संप्रभुता और अखंडता की रक्षा के लिए पूरी तरह से कमिटेड है। धन्यवाद। जय हिंद।
Several attempts were made by Pakistan on spreading a misinformation campaign, as we have seen for the last few days. There were attempts made to say that our S-400 at a northern base was destroyed, which was completely false, and that it was destroyed by a JF-17. It was a false information. Also, that the BrahMos installation was attacked and it was destroyed was false. The destruction of airfields at Srinagar, Jammu, Pathankot, Bhuj, Nalia, etc. was also a false claim. The forward ammunition dump at Chandigarh and Beas are also fit and fine, and we showed you these in the photographs in the morning briefing today. Also, there was a certain different way of miscampaign that the Pakistan conducted by its press conferences, which was conducted in a manner which was completely misleading and devoid of facts. Pakistan has been spreading fabricated allegations that the Indian armed forces have targeted mosques. Let us make this very clear here, that India is a secular nation and the Indian armed forces are a reflection of our constitutional values. We hold every place of worship of all faiths in the highest regard. Our operations have been aimed exclusively at terrorist camps and facilities being used for anti-India activities. No religious sites, I repeat, no religious sites have been targeted by the Indian armed forces. Over the past few days, as we have seen, Pakistan all has suffered very heavy and unsustainable losses after it has given us an unprovoked attack on our installations. It has suffered losses in both land and air. There has been an extensive damage to the crucial Pakistani air bases like Skardu, Sargodha, Jacobabad, and Bholari. In addition, a loss of AD weapon system and radars made the defense of Pakistani airspace untenable. Across the line of control, extensive and precise damage to military infrastructure and command control centers and logistics installations. In addition to that, 2 military personnel had led to complete breakdown of its defensive and offensive capability and also Pakistani morale.